To the voters of District 11, allow me to give a final warning about my opponent, Candidate Hensley, although the election is now over. Unless we ever again become political opponents, these will be my final words about him. The main reason I record this message is not because I expect it to be viewed by many, but instead so that an accurate recording can be preserved of his actions, despite his effort to hide his true self. Also note that I informed him that I wanted to address him as the main audience of this video, but he ignored my message. A rude action, which he commonly does, so instead, the audience of this video is all of the city of Cary and Northeast Apex. You will also note that this video is more casual than my concession speech to the representative, and that is because I have less respect for Mr. Hensley overall. Firstly, I congratulate him on receiving a somewhat high percentage of the vote. Perhaps his hard work contributed to his success. In the final days of the campaign, he traveled all over the district to put down 500 yard signs. And while he himself admitted this strategy is obnoxious, I can admire the accomplishment and resolve. Other things I admire about his campaign was his willingness to recognize his past mistakes and all the while be a loving father. I was glad that he filled out the Libertarian survey, and I hope a few Libertarians voted for him to reward his appreciation for liberty. Near the end of the campaign, Mr. Hensley partook in an interview in which he finally explained what he would focus on if elected. Additionally, he shared information on local events with the audience, and I thought that was good, in an apolitical sense. Furthermore, I personally found his vision for North Carolina to be more tolerable than Representative Dahl's in the way that it was unambitious. Beyond that, I have nothing nice to say about him. Mr. Hensley was nasty to many people he spoke with. He deleted nearly all of his words in an act of secrecy. He joked about violence against cyclists, and by extension me most of all, not once, but twice. And he even demanded I drop out of the race in a moment of rash anger. His final lowly act came when he mailed to hundreds of neighbors, perhaps thousands, a claim that I was to the right of him when he knew he was lying. Perhaps he saw I have an appreciation for the lessons the past can teach us. One lesson the past can teach him is that the global temperature is indeed rising, species are going extinct, and the continual death toll from natural disasters is serious. As I just hinted, Mr. Hensley is a climate change denier, and by acting that way, we can be sure he is not the man for the moment. Even if it so happens that climate change is not the quote-unquote crisis that left-wing politicians would have you believe, if climate change is even a fraction as serious, to willfully ignore it would be negligence of the highest order. When I say Mr. Hensley was nasty, I mean to say that he was very aggressive and demonstrated an alarmingly low empathy for others and a sharp lack of professionalism. My charge against him is not that he was, say, slightly politically incorrect, but that he was supremely uncouth in the first few months of his campaign, demonstrating faulty character and questionable judgment. Mr. Hensley was not forthcoming with information about what on earth he would do as a lawmaker. I think to his credit that he meant to imply that he would follow along with his party leadership, but that, to quote what he said to the News and Observer, that he would break rank to defend the rights of citizens. Nevertheless, his website for half of a year had no details on his methods or values or priorities, beyond to say that there was 3 vague topics he fancied. Before that, he intentionally had no website and no details about his plan, and even got angry with a female voter who innocently asked him what his goals were. He would sometimes retweet opinions by random people he agreed with, and voters were expected to decipher his agenda based on those tweets. As I mentioned, he finally gave a few details at the end of his campaign, but by then it was still not enough, especially considering he had deleted previous efforts to hint at his stances. That is not what leadership looks like. Leaders don't cower in fear of their voters, but instead take a clear stance on important issues. I said a lot of things to my audience that I am certain made them uncomfortable, but I did it because I had confidence. I wanted to be the voice of reason in this opportunity that only happens once every 2 years. He, by contrast, wasted his chance. I do not think it is an exaggeration to say that Mr. Hensley is a rich business owner who spends his days smoking cigars, eating donuts, trolling people online, and playing golf at the McGregor Country Club to escape from his wife. Those are real facts about him, and yet, from the outside, he might sound a little like a cartoon villain, but I swear that this is an accurate description based on real content he has posted online, but since then deleted. Then again, he is capable of composing himself for a 1 hour interview or when canvassing voters in person. If Allison Dahl can hardly be said to represent the average experience of someone who lives in Cary, Philip Hensley is no more an avatar of the average voter I have met, and he is no role model. Likewise, if Allison Dahl prefers to see the world through the lens of generalizations, which is to say, she sees me as a Christian white male but does not see Matthew Kordon when she looks at me, I am sad to say the same bigotry is true of Mr. Hensley. The man accused me of being a prosecutor of Christianity before he was aware that I was a fellow Christian, because he assumed about me that I was an atheist or some such. He made a claim that all Jewish people hate Christians, and said the same about all libertarians and all Democrats. In the month of April, his behavior was particularly paranoid and hysterical in this regard, but by the summertime he had managed to get a grip of himself and calm down and had a professional tone from that point onward. Lastly, I do not think it to be an acceptable excuse that this was his first time in politics. It was my first time in politics also, but I performed better than many libertarians who had run for office many times before. No, Mr. Hensley is an especially bad apple, and was the butt of many jokes of my fellow libertarians in private because he, by his own actions, had ruined his reputation with us when he attacked us in April and got our attention thereafter with his skullduggery. For what it is worth, I never partook in making fun of him, because it did not seem like the moral response. I have said a few nice things about him, and so I can understand why some people voted for him, but I nevertheless want to warn the community that should he ever try to show his face again, he might not be the man he claims to be. With that said, I say to him, good riddance.